in the line of duty. The National Wildlife Day celebrations and exhibitions will take place on the 3rd of March 2024 in Chenjejo district. I take this opportunity therefore to invite all of you to participate in the above events. As I conclude, I would like to appreciate the organizers of this conference, led by Uganda Wildlife Research and Training Institute, working closely with WWF and Nature Uganda. Before I invite the guest of honor, of course, I wish to bring apologies from the Cabinet Minister who presented this paper in Cabinet last Monday, and it was approved for us to go ahead and have this event. Of course, he's not here with us. He's going to be our host. So I think the pressure is on to him not to disappoint us, because it will be when we go to Chenjejo. So he's already there partaking in the preparations. But Honorable Minister, probably last year we've had a number of innovations in conservation. UWA has had partnerships with the there's an app we launched. Someone from UWA here, if you remember, Mr. Mwanda, what was the name of the application? It was My Gorilla. Or GoChimp. It's called GoChimp. No, Home of a Gorilla. Okay. But it was an application through some partners where someone would be able to follow a gorilla family, whether abroad, online, and pay some money. And the proceeds of that would be shared by 50% by UWA and 50% by the ministry. But we also had an innovation here, I think for the museum as well, using a different partner who was coming up with animation to tell the Ugandan story digitally. So we are moving in that direction. And I know you have a very able agency, NITA, with very many young Ugandans who are very innovative and can come up with so many innovations that can help us sell, market, and create the visibility of Ugandans' resources better. So there has been a lot of talk in the press. I don't know when this story will stop. I even saw it yesterday, the other day. But you know, technology is not easy, Honorable Minister. You've heard about the gorilla permits. It is like a nightmare. It keeps coming up every other day. Even yesterday I was seeing. But of course, it still has a glitch of technology because some people took advantage of the systems that we're using and abused them. Of course, in a very sophisticated manner through using individuals right from the beginning, from where you pay from to the tail end at the gate where someone received some of these permits. But it's good investigations have been done. Some people have been dismissed. But we're also implementing a new system that we think will not be abused. So these are the challenges that come with technology going forward. But our commitment is to conserve, protect Uganda's resources as much as we can and also make revenue out of them. I want to thank Uganda Wildlife Research and Training Institute for taking a lead in this and for doing research to make sure that we resolve a number of issues in the conservation sector. It's now my honor, our chief guest and one of the hosts of the gorillas is a beneficiary of the 20%. So he understands. So yes, right. Sorry, Honorable Chris Wariomunsi, it's now my honor to invite you to speak to us. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, and I was in touch with him. I want to confirm what the acting PS said. And he was worried that how can you arrive before myself when I am the host? And I said, no problem. You are coming from very far and you take your time. But I want to thank you that you navigated through the jam and be able to be here with us this morning. In the interest of time, permit me to acknowledge the representative of the PS members of the board, and all of you senior officials, our session chair, Mr. Achilles, who is you are the overall master of ceremonies, and all of you distinguished friends, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Let me start by introducing myself, although I have been introduced. My name is Chris Bariomunsi. Where I come from, our names can be a paragraph. So you might bite your tongue in the process of pronouncing it. I come from Kanungu. Like the Honorable Minister has said, I come from a conservation area, and I usually proudly say, especially when I'm outside the country, that I represent mountain gorillas in the Parliament of Uganda. So, because the windy area, part of it is in the Kanungu and the Greater Chigezi, generally where we come from. And I'm also the Minister of ICT and National Guidance. And for those of you who are in the yellow party, I see only one person wearing yellow, the lady behind. Yes, she's there. I am a vice chair of the Yellow Party for Western Uganda. And maybe for emphasis, Dr. Achilles and I were training to be priests together. But in those good old days, you say many are called, few are chosen. We didn't make it to priesthood, but we are priests or ministers. I usually tell the church ministers that before you became church ministers, I became a government minister. And actually, this is a conservation minister. So we are still serving humankind. Yes, Honorable Tekad, our good friend, I want to welcome you and recognize your presence, and thank you very much for being here. Now, when you become a big man, they start inviting you for functions, like you invited me to officiate at this opening of the important conference, and then they also write for you a very powerful speech, which I have here. And then they say, this is the speech that you will read. Very well written, very technical, but you will permit me that I speak to the speech without reading it verbatim in the interest of time, because I see you have a big program with very key topics to discuss, and therefore I don't want to stand in the way between myself and concluding the whole program, which is long. So I will speak to the speech without necessarily reading verbatim what has been prepared for me. But let me start by thanking the ministry and all of you stakeholders, particularly from the remarks of the PS, for inviting me. I think it's a rare opportunity, a minister for ICT, interfacing and interacting with conservation experts, and I'm sure by the time I leave, unfortunately I may not attend up to the end, you would have awarded me some certificate as a conservationist. But I am happy to be in the midst of all of you, and I thank the ministry for inviting me, and also thank all of you for the good work that you are doing in the various areas regarding conservation and management of our natural resources. So thank you very much. We watch from a distance, yes, sometimes, but we are also participants, but we do appreciate the good work that you do. Particularly, let me thank the ministers, Honorable Butime and Honorable Mugara, because they are my colleagues in the cabinet, and I can confirm that they are on when it comes to issues of wildlife conservation, tourism. I don't want to say they bother us, but they are always raising the issues, whether it is the budget, whether it is policy issues. Like they had a paper on this marking the day, and we had a long cabinet. So the chair was about to conclude and say the remaining items will have to be handled next Monday. But they insist, they said, no. Your Excellency, we're not going to leave here before we discuss this matter. And because they are always raising the issues, everybody said, no. Let them present, give them time. So we almost like overruled the chair. And because they are very emphatic on the issues of the ministry. So I want to thank you, two ministers, including Honorable Mugara, who is here. Like you heard, the Honorable Senior Minister is away in change of preparing for us. And we hope to have a very vibrant day on the 3rd of March, which is a few days from now. Let me appreciate the theme, and I'm sure it is because of the theme that also connected me and our ministry to this conference, because the theme for this year's celebrations is connecting people and the planet, exploring digital innovations for wildlife conservation. And I hope by the end of the conference, we shall all be clear on how to integrate technology as we handle wildlife conservation. The interface, and I've seen the program, there are very key topics which are going to be discussed, and I'm sure we shall end with clarity on how the emerging technologies, on how the digital revolution is impacting on wildlife conservation, and how we can harness and leverage on all these developments in order to take wildlife conservation forward. I therefore want to thank you for the theme and appreciate all of you. When I came in, I said this is a full class, it's a full house, and that's very impressive. It shows the interest that you have in this topic and also the energy and enthusiasm that you are showing in handling these issues of wildlife conservation, especially as we reflect on how technology is impacting on all this and how we can harness technology to move forward. Let me start with a biblical reference that Jonathan, who led us in a word of prayer, alluded to. And he was basically quoting from the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 28. For those of you who are Christians, the Bible is the tool that guides Christianity, and it's quite instructive. In the book of Genesis, the story of creation is well recorded. How God took 6 days to create whatever was created, and he created everything and ended with man and woman. Because when you say man, it becomes gender insensitive. Okay, human being. He created a man and a woman on the last day. Now, in verse 27, talks about how he created the human being. Then verse 28, which he quoted, gives a command, God gives an instruction to the person, the human being he had created. And he said, 1, multiply and fill the earth. And that's what we are doing. And I'm sure you as conservationists, you also need to reflect on this multiplication, this population growth, how it is impacting on natural resources, how it is impacting on wildlife conservation. And then he said, subdue the earth and have and establish dominion over whatever I have created. The birds of the air, the fishes of the seas and the waters, the plants, the wildlife, the animals. You as a human being establish dominion over whatever I have created. Meaning, I have made you superior to all the creatures. So make sure you control, govern, and be in charge and subdue the earth. Meaning, what I have created should not defeat you, should not be above you. It is you with that superiority with that authority that I have given you. And it's quite instructive, and I agree with the friend that led the prayer that gives us a lot of strength as people who are in conservation, that the wildlife conservation, protection of natural resources is a God-given command to man and woman, to all of us. So you, the people in the conservation, when you are doing your work, you are doing God's work, you are fulfilling and answering God's command. God's command. Now, I am also a scientist and a medical scientist. Now, when you go to the anatomy and physiology of a human being, God also decisively undertook some measures to give a human being a capacity in order to fulfill that command. For instance, when you look at the human brain in many aspects is superior compared to the brains of other creatures, other animals. A human being has one of the largest brains in terms of size. But when we speak of the size of a human brain, we do not necessarily use the kilograms or how heavy it is, but we look at how heavy it is in comparison to the size of the human body. Because you will find an elephant, the brain of an elephant is much bigger than the brain of a human being. But when you get the size of the human brain compared to the mass of the human being, it is big in terms of proportions. And you get the size of the brain of the elephant compared to the whole size of an elephant, then the human brain becomes bigger in that context. But also there is a part of the brain that we call the cerebral cortex, which is the most sophisticated part of the brain that is wired to enable us to do whatever we do. For a human being, it is the biggest, that part of the brain, compared to the other creatures. And of course, without going deep into the science, the sophistication in the human brain, in terms of the nervous system, in terms of the ability to think and the cognitive abilities, the human brain is much more superior than any other creature. That's why you have a brain, you can distinguish what is bad and what is good. You can make a decision to go this way, which animals cannot do. I can say now, I'm going to address you afterwards, I'm going to chair a meeting. I don't think an elephant has that capacity. That let me do this and do, although its brain is big. So the human brain, God decisively made the human brain much more sophisticated to enable a human being do what he had commanded in the book of Genesis. Now, the other thing that God gave us as human beings, he gave us two hands. The two hands which coordinate with the eyes. The eyes. And we use these hands to do many things. That's why, because of a sophisticated brain, a human being, even the primitive stages, was able to sharpen maybe some tool which he can use to injure an animal that is attacking him. And of course, with the sophistication, he's able to make a spear, to make a panga, to make defensive tools. Now we develop computers, all these, using the brain, coordinating with the hands, the two hands. And for the third one that God gave us was the ability to walk on two legs. On the two legs. If I had time, I would tell you the science of all this. So the bipedalism, ability to walk on two legs, the hands that can hold something, and the hands coordinate with the eyes, and then the brain, where all the decisive actions God took in constructing a human being in order for you to be able to fulfill what he had commanded in the Bible, for it to make it complete. And I will use this to go now into technology, what is happening in technology. So meaning, God gave us the tools, the wisdom, the knowledge, the ability to subdue the earth and to establish dominion over whatever he had created, which he didn't give the others. Can an elephant, can a lion, a leopard make any tool to facilitate what it does? For us, a lion just uses natural energy to run and just capture prey, eat it, and that's it. That's it. He just spots a prey, runs after it. But for us, we are more sophisticated. You may have an animal you want to eat, you may not have to run after it. You can make a trap, it just falls in the trap and you get it. Or you have a gun, you shoot it, and then you get it. But you don't have to run after an antelope for kilometers. So meaning that we are much more sophisticated compared to the other creatures which God has given us. So I am just basing my remarks on the verse which Jonathan gave us. Is Jonathan the one who led us in the word of prayer? And it becomes extremely relevant in the topic which we are discussing today, connecting people and the planet, exploring digital innovation in wildlife conservation. Now let me start with multiply and feed the earth. Now we boast of about 8 billion people in the world. There is what demographers call the demographic transition. And countries all over are undergoing the demographic transition, which basically is defined by the birth, the number of people we give birth to, and the death, those who die, and how those two interplay, and how they define the quality of the population. And this transition has about 4 stages. When you reach the 4th stage, you have completed the demographic transition, where you find the fertility levels are low, mortality levels are low, and the quality of the population is much higher. Now, when you look at what is happening in the world, many of the countries in the global north either have completed or are in the process of completing the transition, the demographic transition. When you go to countries like Japan, Japan now, the annual population growth rate is negative 0.5%. So the population is increasing by negatives. In other words, it's decreasing. So when you look at their projections, I think they are now like 120 million people. You find they are projected to decrease to 110, to 100, to what? And many countries in Europe, North America, they are advanced in terms of that transition. But also it speaks to the kind of interventions and investment they have put in the people and in the quality of the people. The life expectancy has gone very high. Women do not give birth to many children. Actually, if you move in the town of Tokyo, for instance, you hardly find a woman who is pregnant. That's how you use the naked eye analysis. But you move in a city in Africa, you will see many pregnant women. So it tells you about the population growth and what is driving the population growth. So they have an aging population, and I have visited Japan several times. You find that what used to be primary and secondary schools, the infrastructure, the buildings, they have now turned them into homes of the elderly. That's where they keep and look after the elderly people above 60 years. So for them, when they sit in their parliament, what dominates their debate is pension. How do they budget for pension of the people who are retired and so forth? Whereas when we sit in the parliament, we are debating how do we immunize our children? How do we get medicines to these children? How do we plan for doctors to specialize in child health medicine? But for them, they are planning how do we plan for having doctors who specialize in geriatric care for the aged. So the dynamics become different. Now, when you come to Africa here, we are still fulfilling God's command of fill the earth. Our annual population growth rates are very high population, and Uganda actually has a trophy in a way in terms of population growth. And I'm sure you, as people who are in the conservation area, you know the impact, the implications of the rapid population growth in terms of the challenges that you face on natural resources, whether it is access to land, poaching and killing these animals. The population growth definitely is impacting on all these. And yes, we do not, as scientists, we do not necessarily oppose God's command of multiplication, but the national population policy speaks to guiding the population to produce by choice, not by chance. In other words, the national policy speaks of guiding couples and partners to have a manageable family size. A man and wife or partners should be able to discuss and agree on the number of children they can raise and give them a happy life, but also be able to learn how to space them and so forth, and so forth. So we do not encourage Ugandans to just produce, like what the Bachiga would say, producing flour. Produce to exhaust the biological potential of a woman. It has to be guided and so forth. So we are still in the earlier stages of the demographic transition, where our fertility is still high and mortality or death is also still high. So we are actually in the first stage of the transition, while countries in the West or the global North, many of them are in the fourth and third, fourth at the other end. And we need to appreciate this, and as we do our work, to know what it means in terms of wildlife conservation. And of course, this transition also moves alongside what we call the epidemiological transition, the disease burden for both human beings, but even wildlife. That's why at times we look at ourselves to be in the disease axis. When you look at South Sudan, or the Greater Sudan, Uganda, Congo, we get very many epidemics and so forth and so forth. All of these things can be explained. Now, that's one aspect. Now, the other aspect I want to speak to is that for us in the digital world, we now speak of the fourth industrial revolution. I'm sure you have heard about it. Now, when you talk of the fourth industrial revolution, it means we have had the first, the second, the third, now we are in the fourth, even moving into the fifth. And the question has been, what has been our role and how have we participated and how have we harnessed these revolutions and the fruits of these revolutions? When you talk of the first industrial revolution, we speak of the steam engine coming on board. We talk of mechanized production, mass production. Then we went into second revolution, where things like electricity came on board, where things like radios and radio frequency came on board. Now when you go into the third revolution, that's when computers, internet came on board. Now we talk of the fourth industrial revolution, where we have cutting-edge technologies that are driving the world. But Honorable Mugara and I, who are in politics, when you go to the communities, people are demanding electricity to be connected to the villages. But electricity is a technology of the second industrial revolution. We are talking of mechanized production. People are still using the hand hoe, even where the area is flat and you can use tractors and mechanized power and irrigation and so forth. But now the world is moving and moving very fast. So the question is, how do we catch up with the rest of the world in being part of these revolutions? Now, when you look at the fourth industrial revolution, where we are, the technologies which are now driving the world, we speak of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence. How are we applying it in our day-to-day life. We speak of robotics. The other day when there was an expo in Dubai, when our president went there, one of the presidents, I think it was the president of Iran, came with a robot as a bodyguard. Whereas our presidents were being guarded by many soldiers surrounding them. But we just came with one robot, which was guarding him. So robotics, when you now speak of the Internet of Things, where we even now have vehicles which drive themselves without a driver. And they have internet nodes, and they can communicate to each other, and they can't have accidents. But for us human beings who drive, we just knock each other. The other day I was in Barcelona. Next week we are also going to be in Barcelona to look at the new technologies which are upcoming. They were introducing me to machines now, which are used for mining, and they drive themselves. Somebody just sits in an office and operates the machines, and they mine and go underground and get the minerals without a driver. But here you hear people mining sand, and then the soil just falls on them, and say 5 people have died recently in Kanungu. We lost some 2 young men who were just mining sand. Just a rudimentary mineral, rather product, a natural resource, just sand. But there are technologies now where vehicles and other forms of earth-moving equipment, they mine minerals without a human being driving them physically. That's where technology is reaching. Now with the Internet of Things, we now have clothes where technology is advanced, that you can put on and they keep measuring your body temperature. If malaria is coming, you can detect it early, and so forth and so forth. And so forth and so forth. So the world is moving and moving very fast. Things of nanotechnology. The other day people were saying, when we had COVID, people were questioning why the scientists came up with the COVID vaccine much more faster, yet they know in the past vaccine development takes a long time. And they were saying this vaccine must be fake. But we've been explaining that what helped the scientists to come up with a vaccine so fast was technology. Because what happened is that the Chinese scientists, where the COVID disease was identified first, they were able to extract the genetic material, the genome of the virus. And then when they extracted it, they shared it digitally in the scientific community. And that helps to jump very many steps which you take as a scientist to arrive at that. And because of supercomputing techniques, they were able now to develop the vaccine, and also basing on the lessons and experiences they have had on developing the HIV vaccine and others, it was possible to come up with a vaccine in a short period, courtesy of technology. But to the eye which is not trained, people were saying, no, how come they have just rapidly got a vaccine? It must be fake, it must be what? But for us who are scientists, we looked at all the steps, and there is no step which had been missed. But because of technology. So the question now is, how do we as Africa, how do we as Uganda, how do we as Ugandan scientists help to be part of this revolution? Because where we are now, you cannot wish away technology. Even if you close your eyes and say, let the technology world move on, you cannot run away from it. When the mobile phones came, there are people who, I had a friend of mine who said, I will not have a mobile phone. We were together in the office. I was working with the UN agency here, UNFPA. You know him, called Fabian. He's our friend. He said, I will not have a mobile phone. I said, you man. But eventually the pressure mounted and they had to buy a mobile phone. So you cannot run away from technology where we are. In order to have efficiency in whatever we do, technology has to be integral and central to what we do. So even you people in conservation, in wildlife conservation and management of natural resources, you cannot run away from technology. If you hide from it, it will invade you. It will be there. So what we are discussing today is how do we use technology? How do we embrace and integrate technology in our work so that we are able to perform better in whatever we are doing. Today, whether you speak of health, you must integrate technology in order for you to be efficient and to have better results in health care and health provision. Whether you speak of education, you saw it when we had COVID and we sent away our learners, our children to go back to school. There was a sharp digital divide between children who are in urban areas and children who went to the rural areas. In Kanungu, I would find young boys, school boys, now grazing cattle, grazing goats, while those in Kampala are on e-learning, using digital tools to continue learning.
As the minister, you know,
whether it is
You've
transport and
passionate
logistics management,
about
you definitely
issues
need
of conservation.
technology.
But most important,
Whether it is agriculture,
as a ministry, we
these days,
appreciate
no,
every
naturally
effort
here we depend
we
on
normally take
God-given rain.
to
So
give
now it's a dry season.
information
We have to wait for the rain. When we are expecting rain, they don't whether come. it is When we know it's a dry transport season, and because of the logistics climate management change, that you we've been definitely speaking need. about. But with the technology, you can be able to Technology. predict the weather. Whether it is
During
agriculture,
these months,
this is going to happen because all
These
these
days,
things are
no,
possible. So
naturally
we
here,
have
we
to
make sure
depend
that
on
technology is part and
God-given
parcel
rain.
of
So now it's a dry
what
season.
we do.
We have
today.
to wait for the rain.
And that is
When
why
we are expecting rain, they don't come.
the
When we know
president
it's a dry season
established
because of
the
the
Ministry
climate change that
of
we've been
ICT.
speaking about. But with the
Our
technology, you
ministry
can
is
be able to
Ministry of
predict the weather.
Information,
To know in these months,
Communications,
this is
Technology,
going to happen
and National Guidance.
because all these things
It
are
actually
possible.
merges
So we
two
have
ministries.
to make sure that technology
The other
is
Ministry
part
of
and parcel
Information and
the
of
communication part,
what we
the
do
spokesmanship of
today.
government,
And that is
but
why
also the other ICT,
the president
technology
established
the ministry
that we handle,
of ICT.
and that's why
Our
we have
ministry
to work
is
with
Ministry
you
of Information
to explore the opportunities
Communications
available
Technology and National
to take.
Guidance.
It actually
Wildlife
merges two
conservation,
ministries. And the other Ministry of
Resource
Information
Management
and
the
forward
communication part,
and
the
how do we
spokesmanship
harness
of government,
digital,
but also the other
innovation.
ICT,
And I do
the
hope that
technology
we
part,
have
a very
that we
meaningful
handle,
and engaging
and
discussion.
that's why we
so
have
that
to
we
work
see
with
how
you
we can work
to
together
explore the
to
opportunities
use
available.
technology. There are many things
to
which we
take
are doing as a ministry,
wildlife
conservation, to ensure that
natural
we catch up
resource
with the rest
management
of the
forward,
world. I
and
have
how
told
do we
my
harness
audiences that
digital
while the world is
innovations.
moving fast,
And I
for
do
us
hope
we
that
have
you
to
will
run
have
a very meaningful
catch
and
up with
engaging
it.
discussion, but aware that
So
when
that
you
we
run,
see
you
how
sweat.
we
can
So
work
we should
together.
be
prepared to run,
use
sweat.
technology.
There are many things
And
which we
catch
are
up
doing
with the rest
as a
of the world.
ministry. The way we
ensure
were left
that
behind in the
we
first
catch up
industrial
with the rest
revolution,
of the
the
world.
second, the third.
I have
In
told
the
my
fourth and
audiences
going forward,
that
we
while
must do
the
everything
world is
possible
moving
to run.
fast
For us, we
and
have
catch
to run
up
and embrace these technologies.
catch up with
These
it.
cutting edge, but aware that
and
when you
disruptive
run the
technologies
technologies
I'm
so we should
describing
be prepared to
should
run,
not just be
sweat,
textbook words,
and catch up with
we
the rest
must
of the
find
world.
a way of
The way we were left
integrating
behind
them
in the
into
first industrial
day-to-day
revolution, the second, the
lives
third,
and day-to-day
in the fourth and going
day-to-day
forward,
work that we do
we must do everything
as
possible to
people
run
who are for
and catch up and
public
embrace these
service.
technologies.
So
as a ministry,
these
cutting edge, there are many things that disruptive technologies
we are
I'm
doing
describing.
should
One
not
of
just
them
be
that we've
textbook
been laying
words.
we must find
National
a way of backbone integrating
infrastructure,
them into the
day-to-day
digital infrastructure,
lives
things
and
that
day-to-day
connects
the day-to-day
the
work
work
that
we are
do
landlocked
as
country.
people who
People
are
prefer to
for
say land linked
public
not
service.
landlocked. So as a
We get
ministry,
our fiber
there are many
from the
things
Indian
that
Ocean.
we are doing through Kenya. One of them that we've
now
been
we have
laying
hooked
the,
it
to the Tanzanian national
network.
backbone.
We have
also
also
agreed
agreed
as ministers
the
the
digital
northern
infrastructure
corridor
that
brings
East
and
Africa
connects
region
internet.
to
We are
hook
landlocked
it Rwanda, DRC,
country.
people
South
prefer to
Sudan,
say
South
land
Sudan,
linked, not landlocked.
interlinked. So we get our
Digitally
fiber
through
from
this
the Indian
national
Ocean
backbone infrastructure.
through Kenya. The other day, Honorable Kwizera
But
from
now we have
Kisoro was
hooked
asking
it
to the
when
Tanzania
are you connecting
network,
that
backbone
we
infrastructure.
have
We have
also
also
agreed
agreed
as
as ministers in the northern
Those are the
corridor
issues the East African
we want us
region
to reflect on.
hook it
What kind of
Rwanda,
technologies would
DRC,
you want us
South
to
Sudan,
extend
so we are
to these protected
interlinked
areas? At one time there was a
through
debate, should
this
we put
national
masts
backbone infrastructure.
in national parks or not? The other day, Honorable Kwizera
Will the
from
pa-
Kisoro was
must
asking,
be disruptive
when are you connecting
or
that
not?
backbone infrastructure?
Will there be a
into the
distraction
parks?
to wildlife
Conservation
conservation?
issues. But again,
We want us to
these
reflect
tourists
on
who come,
what
what
kind
kind
of
of
technologies
technologies
would
would
you
you
want
want us to extend to these protected areas?
So you
At
need
one time
as
there was a
experts
debate, should we put
to
masks
discuss all these
in
but
national
also
parks
I don't know whether
or
people
not?
from my ministry are here.
Will the
Must
because
be
this
disruptive
theme should bring
or
us
not?
together will
those
they be a
in charge of
distraction to
digital
wildlife
technologies,
conservation?
and
But
you
again,
in the conservation,
these tourists who come, they want to take a
discipline,
picture and so that we
post it
work
and
together.
take it and
See what
send
kind
it on
of
WhatsApp.
technologies should
you
we
need as
embrace
experts
to
in the
discuss all these?
conservation
But
arena
also, I don't know
in
whether
order
people
to
from my
facilitate
ministry are here,
wildlife
because
conservation
this theme
and
should
management
bring us together,
of the natural resources.
those in charge of
that
digital
interface
technologies,
and you in
extremely
the
very
conservation
important. We've been trying
discipline
and with
so
that
that
we work together. See what kind of
backbone
technologies should
we
we
now cover
embrace
like half of the
in
country,
the conservation,
but we
arena
now have resources
in order
to
to
cover the
facilitate
rest of the country.
wildlife
So I
conservation
would want the guidance
and the
from
management
you,
of the
people who
natural
manage the
resources.
protected areas.
So that
What kind of
infrastructure do you need?
Extremely very important.
So that
We've
we
been
provide
trying
and we work together.
And with
We've
the
been trying to cut down the cost
backbone,
of internet.
we've
Because
now
one of the
covered like
prohibitive
half of the country,
factors, even for
but we now
tourism
have
and
resources to cover the rest of the
conservation
discipline.
So I would want the guidance from
If
you. Internet and
people who
data is
manage
very
the
costly
protected
areas.
then also
What kind of
this becomes
infrastructure do you
challenge,
need?
but we've
So
been
that
bringing
we
down
provide and we
the
work
cost
together.
of internet.
We've
the
been
cost of
trying to
digital
cut down the
devices,
cost
and we
of
have
internet.
strategies in place
Because
to
one of
even
the
bring internet
prohibitive
costs much lower,
factors, even
and
for
also the
tourism
digital
and the
devices much lower in order
conservation
to facilitate
discipline
penetration of
If
ICT.
internet
and other
and data is
technologies
very costly
in our
then
population.
also this becomes
Because we are also
a challenge, but we've been
focusing
bringing
on
down the cost
digital
of
literacy,
internet,
heightened
the
digital
cost of
literacy,
digital devices,
digital
and we have
sovereignty
strategies in order
place,
for us to be able to
bring
make
internet costs
the
much
apps
lower,
and other platforms,
and also the
ourselves,
digital devices much
and I'm
lower
happy you are
in order
speaking
to
to an
facilitate
app.
penetration
Those people
of
behind it
ICT
came and
and
met
other
me.
technologies in our
And they are
population.
focusing on the
Because we
gorillas,
are also
that
focusing
the
on
tourists, local
digital
and
literacy,
most
heightened
especially
digital
outside,
literacy, digital
can
sovereignty,
actually
in order for us
be
to
part
be able
of
to
the
make
gorilla
the
family
apps and other platforms
and
ourselves
be able to connect
and
with
I
the
am happy
tourism
you are
and the
speaking to
conservation
an app.
activities.
Those people
Even
behind
before
it came and
when
met
they
me.
come,
They have
and they are
subscribed, they are part of
focusing
the
on
family,
the gorillas,
and we need to discuss and
that
see how
the
to support
tourists,
all these
local
innovators,
and most especially
to ensure
outside,
that technology
can actually
is part and
be
parcel
part of the gorilla
of the
family
conservation
and
discipline.
be able to connect with the
So
tourism
technology,
and conservation
as I wind up,
activities.
is here
Even
with
before
us.
when they come,
And I am happy
they
that
have
today
subscribed, they are part of
you
the
are
family,
discussing
and we need
very
to discuss and see how to support
important
all
topics.
these innovators. to
Some
ensure
of the
that
topics that
technology
you are looking at
is part and
include
parcel
digital tracking
of
devices,
the conservation.
smart technologies,
That
data
technology,
analytics,
as I wind up,
predictive
is
modeling,
here with
data
us.
sharing and collaboration
And I am happy
platforms.
that today the role of
You
molecular
are
labs
discussing
in Uganda
very
as digital innovations for wildlife
important
conservation,
topics.
using digital
Some of the
innovations
topics
that
tracking
the-
illegal
you are
wildlife
looking at,
trade,
include
citizen
digital
science
tracking
and mobile
devices,
applications. All these are
smart technologies,
relevant
data
topics
analytics,
which are
and
very
predictive
essential.
modeling. So as a
Data
minister
sharing and
responsible for
collaboration
ICT,
platforms,
I really
the role of
commend
molecular
you and
labs
thank
in
you.
Uganda as
And
digital
I'm looking
innovations
forward
for
to
wildlife conservation,
the resolutions
using digital
the
innovations,
outcomes, the
tracking
way
illegal
forward.
wildlife trade,
I am sure
citizen
part of the
science and
recommendations
mobile
which
applications. All these are
come up with
extremely
will require our
relevant
intervention
topics
as a
which
ministry
are very essential.
responsible
So
for
as a
digital
minister
transformation.
responsible for ICT,
And I want to pledge
I really commend you
that
and
we are
thank
there
you,
for you.
and I'm looking forward to
colleagues,
the
The
ministers,
resolutions,
the outcomes.
the way forward.
I would
I'm
want
sure
to see what you are
part of the
recommending,
recommendations which
and we
come
shall
up
work
with
closely
will
going
require our
forward
intervention
in the ministry
as
and
a
all of
ministry
you in civil society
responsible for
and the
digital
other actors
transformation.
to see that
And I want to pledge
we embrace technology,
that
we
we are there for
integrate
you,
technology, we make
our
technology
colleagues,
central, the
our
ministers,
work,
in order for us to handle this issue of
I
wildlife
would want to see
conservation
what you are
much
recommending
better,
and much more
and
efficient.
we shall work
That's
closely
why I
going
had to
forward
personally
with
come
the ministry
and
and
give
all of
you
you,
that
the
assurance.
civil society and
So,
the other actors.
I
to
thank
see
you
that
very much for
we embrace
inviting
technology,
me.
we integrate technology, we make
Unfortunately,
technology
I will not
central
sit here up
to
to
our
the
work
end.
in order for us
would
to
have
handle
loved
this issue of wildlife
here so that
conservation
I am part
much
of the
better
discussions,
and much more
but
efficient.
I am sure the
That's
outcome
why I
document
had to
will be
personally
shared
come
with us,
and give you
and
that
we shall be
assurance.
able to
So,
forward whatever. I thank you very much
recommendations
for
you come up
inviting
with. We
me.
do support the ministry
Unfortunately,
of
I will not
tourism,
sit here up to
wildlife
the
and
end.
antiquities.
I would have
And
loved
the honorable minister, you should
be
count
here
on
so
me
that I am
and count
part
on
of
us
the discussions
as the ministry
that
for
I am
ICT.
sure the outcome document will be shared with us.
You know, for us
And we shall be able to
politicians,
You can
speak
forward
for
4
whatever
hours, and then you say, with
recommendations
those few words,
you come up with. We do support the Ministry of Tourism,
So, similarly,
Wildlife and Antiquities.
with those words,
And the Honourable
With those
Minister,
words,
you should count on me.
I
and
want to
count on us
declare
as the Ministry
this
of
conference,
ICT.
whose theme
You know, for us
is
politicians,
connecting
you can
people
speak
and
for 4
planet,
hours, and then you say, with those few words,
Exploring digital innovation and wildlife.
conservation,
So similarly,
fishery,
with those
open,
words,
and
I want to declare
let's continue with the discussion
this
and
conference
come up with very strong
whose
recommendations,
theme
which we as government,
is
as
connecting
Ministry for ICT,
people and
are
planet,
very ready to implement
Exploring
together
digital
with all of you.
innovation in
Thank you very much.
wildlife.
May God
Conservation, or fishery, open, and let's continue with the discussion and come up with very strong recommendations, which we as government, as Ministry for ICT, are very ready to implement.
So,
together
Honorable
with all of you.
Ministers, ladies and
Thank you
gentlemen,
very much. May God bless all of you.
we've now been given the green light to continue the discussions. As I mentioned, ministers are busy people, and so naturally he told you that he can't stay till the end. But at least I hope that he can stay, Honorable Ministers, through the gentlemen keynote address, which is coming. Now been given the green light here to continue the discussions about what Uganda Wildlife Authority ministers are busy trying to do. And so naturally he told you that he can't stay till the end. Digital innovation. But at least I hope that combating stay through the issues keynote address, which is coming. Wildlife trade. And here, yesterday I was watching just a little bit about the news, what Uganda Wildlife Authority and my friend is trying to do. Someone that I think was in the dock to use digital innovation, being blamed in combating organization of issues of wildlife trade. Or they're encouraging. Yesterday I was watching poaching, news, killing of wildlife, and my friend supply someone that I think was meat in the dock meat markets. And here in Kampala, he was being blamed, and the organization former chairman of the struggle has always been trying promoting or they're encouraging. Now these people are saying poaching, that you guys are betting of wildlife, and to supply. He was able to explain that actually there are people who are wild meat licensed here in Kampala. Game meat. And as a former meat chairman, I said for sale here in Kampala. The struggle has always been trying. Actually, it's an opportunity that we are missing. Now, these people are saying because one of the opportunities that you guys are betting and to get a license. He was able to explain that actually there are people wildlife who are licensed. So if you decide that instead of cattle, game meat, wild meat, instead of cattle for sale here in which Kampala, you have to spray every week. And actually it's an opportunity that we are missing. Because one of the opportunities Uganda Wildlife Authority buffaloes and zebra is to get a license. You don't have to spray those animals. Farm and you can sell them at a premium price. So if you decide that instead of cattle, nuts to crack, when you tell them about wildlife, instead of cattle, farming wildlife, which you have to spray every week, when will I make my money? If you farm impala and buffaloes and zebra, please give us. You don't have to spray those animals, and you can sell them at a premium price. But Ugandans had nuts digital to innovation. When you tell them about wildlife, combat wildlife, farming wildlife, they say, when will I make my money? But it is possible.
Thank you, Dr. Panta Kasoma.
Mr. Mwanda, please give us just a peek into how you are using
our chief guest,
digital innovations,
the Minister of ICT and National Guidance, trade, the Minister of State, or Minister of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities. Thank you, Dr. Panta Kasoma. Our distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. The theme is clear. Our chief guest, connecting people and the Minister for ICT and National Guidance, exploring digital innovation, Minister of State in wildlife conservation, wildlife and antiquities. And my topic, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, is technology application in combating illegal wildlife trade to all of us and trafficking, connecting people and the planet. and I'll be presenting digital on behalf of the Uganda Wildlife Authority in wildlife conservation. And as I do so, I want to recognize the fact my that topic we are up there. The crowd is technology application in combating illegal wildlife trade. You are managing and the trafficking, and that you will excuse me, and I'll be presenting this on behalf of Uganda Wildlife Authority because some of you might not allow it. And as I do so, I want to recognize the fact that we are a crowd in a small box. Let me tell you, on Sunday, you are managing the sweating and that you will excuse me, and I remove this all members of All Saints Cathedral. I will not ask for permission because they have a fellowship. Not allow it. They invited me to speak to them because they have visited their national parks and have admired the wildlife there. Let me tell you, on Sunday, and they asked me to give my experience managing wildlife. 60 plus speaking to that experience. All members of All Saints Cathedral, they have a fellowship. Tell them the challenges I have. Invited me and encourage them to speak to them because they have visited our national parks. Just that. And have admired my portion of the reading there. Was Genesis from and they asked me to chapter 1, my experience managing wildlife, I think to 31. I'm not going to speak into that experience because we are here to talk technology. Tell them the challenges I have. Chief guest already mentioned, and encourage them to visit more. That we cannot. And I did just that. It is and my portion of the reading was Genesis from chapter 1, 24. I think to 31. I'm not going to preach it today technology because we are here to talk technology. And I like to. I'm not managing. Chief guest already mentioned that we cannot wish technology away. Which button am I supposed to press? It is here, it's technology here to stay. I hope, please help me from the back there. Technology. We have in our constitution, I think I'm not managing. We have in our constitution the provision that government will set aside places that are natural. Please help me from the back there. That are forest reserves, that are game parks. Have in our constitution the provision that are reserved for ecological and touristic purposes. We have in our constitution the provision that the government constitution will set aside places. The Uganda Wildlife are natural, that are lakes, that are rivers, was developed, that are forest reserves, that are game parks, and this one entrusted reserved for ecological of the wildlife and in the country purposes by Uganda Wildlife Authority on behalf of the people of Uganda. And out of that, you probably are already aware that we have 10 national parks, we have 12 wildlife reserves, was developed several and formed. Sanctuaries. And, this one we have entrusted the management community of the wildlife in the country areas by Uganda Wildlife Authority is important for us of the people of Uganda. And as an institution, you probably are already aware that we have 10 national parks, we have 12 wildlife reserves, vision. We have several Uganda Wildlife Authority sanctuaries, a global leader, and we have 5 wildlife conservation, wildlife and areas. Our mission, which is extremely important to us, is important for us economically develop and sustainably manage the wildlife and wildlife protected areas of Uganda in partnership with neighboring communities and other stakeholders for the benefit of the people of Uganda and the global community. And our mission, which is extremely important to us, strategic core goal, which is sustainably managed wildlife resources, sustainably coexisting the wildlife and wildlife protected areas of Uganda enjoyment in partnership with neighboring communities to local and other stakeholders for the benefit of the people of Uganda and the global community. And we dive into strategic core goal, which is the actual reason sustainably managed wildlife resources, the issue of technology with the neighboring communities, providing enjoyment, technological development, and significantly contributing to local conservation all over the world development. To better address the challenges of protecting and restoring dive nature. Into and that the technology is increasingly being used, the issue of technology, species we
and ecosystems
aware that
across the
technological
globe.
developments are empowering
We at Uganda
conservation
Wildlife Authority have embraced
conservationists
this
all over the world
and are using many
better
technologies and are
address
going
the
to run
challenges of protecting
through some of them, not all
and
of them.
restoring nature.
There are more than
And
10
that
different
technology
things we are doing
is increasingly
and I'll tell you
being used
that
to protect
sometimes
species
bother me. And
because
ecosystems
one technology
across the globe
can do only
we
percentage
at
of
Uganda
what I
Wildlife
want.
Authority have embraced
And then
this
another and a small
and are using many
percentage and another
technologies
one.
and I'm going
And
to
so in
run
the end, you end up
through some
having
of them, not all
10
of them.
different things.
There are more than
And they are
10
a headache
different things we are
because
doing.
you have to
And
get
I'll
the
tell
right
you
equipment
that
you have to get
they sometimes
the right
bother me.
stuff you
Because
keep
one
retraining
technology
and it is a
can
bother.
do
Only
what
percentage of
unfortunately
what I want.
the
And
minister
then
said
another and a small
we cannot
percentage
wish
and another
away
one. And so in the end,
technology.
you end up having
And I'll keep reminding
10
you
different things
of that one.
and they are a headache.
So we use
Because you
specialized
have to
software
get the right equipment
to
you
manage.
have to
Actually,
get
I should
the
have
right
said
staff,
collect,
you keep
and
retraining
analyze,
and
and
it is a
manage
bother.
and analyze
But
data.
unfortunately,
From wildlife
the minister
surveys,
said we cannot wish
go
away
activities,
technology.
to
And I'll
financial
keep
matters,
reminding you
and
of that one.
this.
So we use
I will
specialized
show
software.
shortly to
One of the
manage,
systems
actually I
we
should
use
have said to
is
collect
what we call
and
the
analyze
smart
and
monitoring
manage
and
and
reporting
analyze
tool.
data.
Smart.
From wildlife
is
surveys
as smart
to
as the
legal
word itself
activities
comes.
to
This one
financial
enables
matters,
us to go out in
and,
the field,
this
arrange on patrol,
I will show
using
shortly.
one of
phone,
the systems we use.
Originally we
is what
started
we
with the
call
GPS. These
the
days we use a
smart
phone,
monitoring
has a
and
software
reporting
in there,
tool.
finds
Smart.
some
It is as
illegal
smart
activity,
as the
inputs
word
that
itself
data,
comes.
including
This one
uh,
enables us
the
to
position
go out in the field,
where that happened.
arrange on patrol,
And then using
arrests 5
his
poachers.
phone,
That information
originally we started
is
with the
entered into the
GPS. These
system.
days we use a
It
phone,
takes
has a
pictures of the
software in
same.
there,
And this
finds
we
some
use
illegal activity
on a daily
inputs
basis.
that data,
As the rangers
including,
go out on patrol,
the
they are able to
position
pick that information.
where that happened.
And we are using it
And then
in all
arrests
our
5
conservation areas.
poachers. There is
That
another called
information
Cyber
is
Tracker.
entered into the system.
This one also
takes
does
pictures of
something
the same.
similar.
And
to,
this, the
we
smart
use
on a daily
tool.
basis.
But
As the rangers
it
go out
has-
on patrol,
it is
they are
configured
able to pick
differently,
that information.
and there are
And we are using
advantages
it in all
between the
our
two,
conservation
which
areas.
I don't want to
There
go
is
into.
another called
But the
Cyber
key thing
Tracker.
here
is
This
that
one also does
one of
something
them
similar
has
to
a
the
limitation.
smart tool.
The third
But
is
it
the open
has
data.
it is
kit
configured
system. I think
differently,
many
and there are
organizations here
advantages
in the country use
between
this.
the two,
I
which
specifically
I
know
don't want to
JGI
go into.
loves
The
it
key
a great
thing
deal.
here is
that
we've gone beyond just
each one of
collecting
them
data
has on forest
limitation
and ecology to actually using it
The
in
third
management.
is the open
So that
data kit system.
somebody
I
can
think many
want
organizations
here in the
ask
country
for,
use this. I specifically know
food
JGI
ration
for the
loves
group of
it a
rangers
great
is going
deal.
with.
We've
and
gone
using this
beyond
very
just
system
collecting
that
data
helps
on
him
forests
and
because
ecology.
one, it
to
is
actually
versatile
using it in the management.
and
So
enables
that
the
we-
collection of data.
Somebody can
but
also
want
want
to
to a lot
ask
of data.
for
This is specifically
say
being used
food ration for
in
the
Kidepo.
group of rangers
and
is
Mount
going
Elgon.
with,
And using this
Earth
very
Ranger
system that
helps
is
him.
fourth.
Because
I
one,
want to
it
talk
is
about
versatile,
the application
and
here.
enables
Combines the collection of data
on
but
ranger
also
patrol.
the inputting.
It has
a lot
remote
of
imaging.
data. This is
and
specifically
sensors
being used
using
radio
in
phones
Kidepo
and cameras
and Mount Elgon.
This information, that photograph you
Earth
see
Ranger
is in what we call a
is
joint
the
operation.
fourth
I
coordination
want to talk
center.
about the application here.
JOC.
Combines data on Ranger Patrol. It
That
has
one.
remote imaging and
so
sensors using radio phones
Earth
and
Ranger
cameras. This information, that
application
photograph you see
is on a
is
computer
in what we call
in a
a
room.
joint operation coordination
has
center. Photographs coming in from
JOC.
cameras out in the field. It has information on where rangers
one.
are. It actually records
so
as they move, so we know which location they
Earth
are.
Ranger
But also is an
because
application that
of the cameras
is on a
you can-
computer
in a room.
Sometimes if the poacher is
It
passing
has
where photographs coming in from cameras out in the field. 5 poachers has information on where rangers are, actually records as they move, so we know which location they are. Rangers nearby, but also and say at a location of the cameras, we give the coordinates. Sometimes if there are 5 rangers, poacher is passing where poacher's camera is, we can already note. Please go. There are 5 we have been able to arrest this location because we know where the camera is. We can then alert it is real time nearby, as long as you have connected XYZ your phone, we give the coordinates or your camera. 5 rangers with the poachers frequency, even they are armed, that please allows the guys have been able to arrest some to peek through this real time called data. Earth Ranger. This has also been real time useful as long as preventing human wildlife conflict. Your phone these days you hear very little of lions in Queen Elizabeth frequency eating people's goats. That allows, because some of them have collars, we are able to monitor them in real time, and often when they go out, has also been useful and in preventing human wildlife conflict. Them back. These days you hear very little, and then we can also stop illegal activities, eating people's goats. Have already mentioned, because some of them have collars. We are able to monitor them in real time. I presume somebody from the Ministry go out of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities will make a special presentation on this. But this is an application we use, and then we can also stop illegal activities for people who want to export, as I have already mentioned, or import. We have the wildlife and wildlife product permitting system into or out of the country. Somebody from the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities will make a special presentation on this. Exporter, importer, but this is would require an application we use because it goes online, permits, he inputs the information, want to export, attaches the relevant documents, or import. Wildlife and wildlife able products to download, look at this into or out of the country. And if there are questions, we're able to send back reduces and say, no, this the amount of time an exporter, importer, and be able would require to get back checking to us because it goes online. And what is the information, it attaches the relevant documents than the normal, in the office, the previously download, look at this, and clear. And if there are questions, we're able to send back and say, no, this information we are missing easily checked, be able to get back digitally by those who are using. And what is important is that this better than the normal, the previously used systems, because picture you see finally when this individual gets his permit to export, where you easily checked as digitally by those who are using to ArcGIS. This is a software, a geographical information system, which provides permitted for mapping. The picture I should mention that many of the systems have integration with each other. Begin. So as this one helps us deal with the maps. We have ArcGIS. This is a software, a geographical information system. Visualize where the animals are found. For that mapping kind of thing, I should mention that the analysis that we do systems have integration with each other, backed up by digital. This one helps us deal with the maps. Global positioning system. This one is almost vegetation mapping out in a way, visualize where the animals are found. Use and that kind of all thing. The other systems, therefore, the analysis that we do GPS embedded is in them. If I'm moving by with data, cyber tracker, global positioning system. They already have the coordinates on the phone. Going out if I'm in a way, smart out of the same thing. Use previously we used the GPS, all the other systems data, but now we use the phones embedded because if I'm moving more versatile and allow us to cyber track information. There is a GPS directly. They already have the coordinates. This is still being used. If I'm moving with collect smart information, the same thing. The key thing previously we used the GPS position to collect whatever data, but now we use the phones because they encounter with elephants and allow us to even send information Impala directly. So encounter. This is still being used. collects information. With the key thing is that you are encroachment or that can be recorded and then downloaded later into a computer, into an application. Encounter with elephants to analyze, or and encounter with impala, and then take the necessary encounter action. With poachers. Camera traps are just cameras. With cameras with encroachment, or that automatically take pictures and then download the moment there is motion a computer around that camera. So if it's a poacher, to analyze, it will take a picture. And if it's an animal, to take a picture. Take the necessary and it helps action. Us, one, know which camera traps we have in the area, just cameras. But also cameras, poachers are passing by, automatically take pictures. With this one, the moment there has a flash around that camera. Reason, so if it's a poacher, it will take a picture. Fear at the same time, an animal, it will take a picture. So the moment and it helps us, one, know which wildlife we have in the area, you will most likely turn to say, poachers are passing by, that light? Sometimes and it takes a picture of your beautiful face. And if you're a poacher, for some reason, we will follow you home and say, on this day at this time, love light. We found you in the park. So the moment it flashes, and then as you pass by, you will most likely turn to say, at the same time, some of these lights have been, and then it takes a picture of your beautiful face. And if you're a poacher, telephone cards follow you home so that they can relay at this time information to our joint operation centers in real time. Then you will have, I talked about Earth Ranger in real time, but at the same time, in Earth Ranger we able to see. You have entered, and then we deploy staff, and you get telephone cards in them, so that then we have radio telemetry. I've combined this with satellite centers because they do the same real time. I talked about mobilize an animal in real time. So in Earth Ranger, we're able to see. You have entered, moves, we are able and to then track it, deploy staff, know where it is, and you get arrested. We currently are using this. Then we have radio telemetry. I've combined this with satellite collars because they do the same thing. It's not only lions. Mobilize an animal, we put a collar. We have normal around its collar the giraffes. We collar it moves. We are able to track it. We are able to know all of them, and we are able to monitor where they are. At what time, well, and the lions to take necessary action, as I mentioned, when it's necessary, but also in action. But it's we not also only have radio communication equipment. The elephants, the current ones which are digital, enable us to send messages. Leopards, they have GPS all of them, so we know where, and we're able to monitor where they are specific time, as long as they have the radios, able to take necessary action. This helps us to do communication. But also, we also have data. Radio communication equipment. We have drones, the current ones which are unmanned aerial vehicles to send messages. They are small airplanes that GPS inbuilt in them, carry passengers. But are able to collect any data time as long as they have the radios. Let me tell you this story. And this helps us very interesting to do communication, but also these guys data. In Ishasha, in Queen Elizabeth. Drones are unmanned very nice vehicles, intelligent poachers small airplanes that they didn't know don't carry passengers. Drones are more intelligent, but are able to collect data. So they get into, let me tell you this story. They very interesting have some dogs, they have these some guys, they are going to lay traps in Ishasha, in Queen Elizabeth. And we have very nice intelligent poachers there. They are running their drone. They didn't know that then drones are more intelligent because the drone is connected to a computer. So they get into, they realize the park, there is a poacher. So they start following, I don't remember whether there were 3 or 4. They are going to start following them with the drone. Now the drone's problem is that it makes guys noise. Sit in their office. So these guys are running their drone. Heard the noise overhead. The drone, and they look because the drone is connected to a computer. Drone came down lower. There's a poacher. And these guys, so they start following. I don't remember whether there were 3 or 4. So they start following them with the drone. Now the drone's problem is that it makes noise to hide under. So these guys heard the noise overhead, ran into a bush, and they looked. Keeps hovering around them. The drone came down lower. To cut the long story short, and these guys noticed that they were being monitored. But we had they scattered one in one direction of their faces. Then they realized how the best thing is to hide under. And after 3-4 days, we were able to
They run into
discover where
bush,
they
but
were.
the drone keeps
have
hovering
them
around them.
arrested. One guy
Anyway,
had a jacket on.
cut the long
That
story
jacket
short,
was clear.
they went back
He
to their
gets to
homes.
court and says, no, no, no,
But we
I've
had
never entered the
taken
Queen
very
Elizabeth
good
National
pictures
Park.
of their faces.
And
how
our
they were
lawyers
dressed.
play this
And,
video
after 3-4
from
days,
the drone. We were able to discover
and
where
the guy
they
says,
were.
I am guilty as
Have
I
them
choose.
arrested.
And the
One
case
guy
was
had a
closed,
jacket on,
and he was
that
convicted.
jacket was clear.
That is the power
He gets
of
to court and
technology.
says, no, 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 I've
There are
never
many
entered
other
the Queen Elizabeth
technologies.
National Park.
And
Our
here you
lawyers
have one, but I
play
actually
this
have
video
two, because
from
Honorable
the drone,
Minister here reminded me.
and the guy says, I am
we
guilty
have the
as I
offenders
choose.
database. This
And
one,
the case was closed,
if we ever
and he was
suspect
convicted.
you,
That is the
suspect
power
not
of
that you have
technology.
offended. There are
We
many other
suspect
technologies.
that
Uh,
you are doing some
here
illegal
you have
activity
one, but I actually
against
have two,
wildlife.
because Honorable
We will
Minister here
input you
reminded me.
In the
They will
that
have the offenders database.
and
This
we'll
one,
start monitoring you, indicating
ever
we are suspecting that he has
suspect not that
ivory.
you have offended.
And whatever
We
data we
suspect
gather, that
When
you are
finally we
doing
catch
some
you,
illegal
and
activity
if you are really
against wildlife, we
a
will
criminal,
input you
we will have gathered
the-
enough data
that
that will be
database.
very easy then
and
to
we'll
produce
start
in
monitoring
court.
you, indicating we are suspecting
you
that he
convicted.
has
But at the same time,
ivory.
if that
And
is your
whatever
first offense,
data we
it is
gather,
there. The next time we catch
When
you,
finally
we go
we
back
catch
and
you,
look. We
and if you are
actually
really
convicted, and the magistrate
criminal,
was kind,
we will have
and
gathered
only
enough data that will be very
you
easy
know,
then
find
to
him
produce in
2
court
million shillings.
and
So then we
get you
tell
convicted.
the but at the same time, magistrate,
If
if
that
that
is
is
your
your
first
first
offense,
offense,
it is there.
that this
The
guy
next
is
time
not
we catch
only
you doing this
we
offense
go
the
back
first
and
time.
look. We
This is
actually
his second or third
convicted,
or
and the
fifth time.
magistrate was
And
kind.
I can assure
and
you,
only
we've gotten
very serious convictions.
find him
2 million shillings.
because
So then we
people-
tell the next
because of the offenders
magistrate in court.
Then the
the
home of
second
a
time
gorilla is not
that
an
this
application
guy
we
is
are
not
directly
only
using,
doing this offense
but,
the first time.
this
A
is
committed
his
group
second or
in
third or fifth
Windy
time.
has
And I
developed,
can assure you,
and they are
we've gotten
taking very serious
pictures,
actually videos of
because people-
gorillas, and using
because
the
of the
home
offenders
of a
database.
gorilla. Then the home of a gorilla is not an application we are directly
Application,
using, but
encouraging
a
people
community group
to make a
in
contribution to
Windy has
gorilla
developed,
conservation
and they are
and
taking
community development.
pictures,
So
actually
that
videos
is
of
also one.
but there are several
gorillas
others
that
and using the home
I cannot
of a
mention.
gorilla. Now, what do we use these technologies for?
application,
We
are
collect
encouraging
data
people
and we
to
store.
make a contribution.
We
to,
then are able to do
gorilla
the
conservation
analysis depending
and
on the
community
technology
development.
and use that analysis
so
for
that
decision making.
is also one.
We can
but there are
also
several
take
others
real-time
that
action
I cannot
to
mention.
prevent a crime.
Now, the
what
cases
do we use these
I've talked to you
technologies
about,
for? We also
we
collect
use it
data
to
and we
restore
reduce the human wildlife
We then are
conflict,
able
where
to do the
we have
analysis
collared animals
depending on the
they are
technology
getting out of the park
and use that
we can
analysis
deploy
for
staff
decision making.
and get them back into
We can also take
park as quickly as
real-time
possible.
action.
We also use
prevent a
it
crime.
as
The
evidence.
cases I've
in
talked to you
courts of
about.
law. We also
I already
use
told
it
you the case
to reduce
of that guy
the
from,
human wildlife conflict,
Queen
where
Elizabeth.
we have collared
But we
animals.
also
We know they are getting out of the
self-determined
park.
trends.
We can deploy staff and get them back into the park. Our
as quickly as
population is
possible.
growing. We also
Or
use
is
it as evidence
going down
population
in courts
of
of
wildlife.
law.
Is it
I
that human
already
wildlife
told you the
conflict is
case
growing,
of that
or
guy
we've managed
from,
to keep it
Queen
under
Elizabeth.
control?
Is
But we
it
also that
self-determined trends.
we are having, for example,
this area
that
grow
our population
much
is
more,
growing with
or is
invasive
it
species and so on
going
and so
down?
on. And
Population
then
of wildlife. Is it
all
that
these
human wildlife
applications
conflict is growing
at one
or
time
we've
or
managed
the
to
other
keep it under
help
control?
us in
Is it
decision
making
that because based on what
we are
you
having, for
capturing,
example,
you
this
can
area
then take the necessary
grow
action
much more
because you have
with
data
invasive
that is
species
helping
and so on
you
and so on
to and then understand the
all
situation
these
on the ground
applications
and make at
the
one time
necessary,
or the other help us
decisions
in decision
that are
making.
good,
Because based on what you are capturing,
ensure that
you
wildlife
can then
continues to
take
be
the necessary
conserved.
action
because you have data. What are the advantages of using the technology? I have understand the situation on the ground and make the necessary promotes efficiency because it is quicker to process. Good. Those of you who know about classification of vegetation, you take a few samples. What are the advantages of using the technology? I have listed a few. There are many more, but it promotes efficiency rather than it is quicker to process. Data as technology as those of you who photographs know about classification of vegetation, and you take a few samples here and there, and you're able to run images together for a much bigger and wider area and much quicker. These days, because of technology, we had data as technology as just need to go sample and then tell the computer whatever you find with this size of pixel take much longer is a forest. Because you would need to put this one, which looks like images together. When I was doing GIS many years ago, we called it training. So you train the computer because of technology, and then you just tell it what sample, and then tell the computer whatever you find with this size of pixel machine work overnight, and you come back. This one, which looks like this, has already done your classification. These days, we called it training. It runs in an hour on what you need, and then you tell it what to do. Changed, and I'll tell you that in the 90s. A good thing and yet a problem. Work overnight. Then it helps with real-time monitoring. I've already explained the case classification. Where these days the drone was used, it runs in an hour, and you have your result. The guy had gone. Things, but there are cases where we changed, and I'll tell you that is actually a good thing and yet a problem. Then it helps with real-time monitoring. We don't know it has located them. The cases we deploy and we find they are still. The drone was used. It also helps the rangers facilitate international collaboration. If you're doing export-import, if you're looking at other ways, a camera communication has located them at a point. Technology don't know it has located them. We deploy and we have complained later that it is expensive. It also helps, but actually sometimes facilitates international collaboration. If you're doing export-import, you have enough of that technology. Looking at other ways that for communication, much manpower. Or if you have less manpower, good. You then, I have complained later people that it is expensive to deal sometimes with specific problems you've seen because of the technology. You have so enough of that technology costs. You go, you don't need and you are effective that at where the real problem is. Or if and you have less manpower, effective data management actually making you people to specific locations to deal with specific problems you've seen because of the technology. So it saves you costs. You go and then and you are effective at improving data accessibility, and then it enables more effective data management, making you on the internet to analyze and make decisions based on what is on the internet. I don't know how many of you are able to use Google Maps, and then these days, if I am driving around town, accessibility, I first tell Google very easy now which is the best route. This data directly has saved me on the internet a few minutes of time decisions, because sometimes where you want to pass is on the internet. I don't know how many of you and yet you could are able to use Google Maps. What are the challenges with our system as I close with these technologies? They are actually many. I've given you what, 10 or 12? It has saved me and a few minutes of time, because sometimes where you want to pass. What does this mean? There is too much traffic, you have to have used a different route that go into that. And you can't. What are the challenges with our system as I close with these technologies? They are actually many. I've given you what, 10 or 12? And I didn't give all of them that we use at UA. What does this mean? You have to have costs that go into that, and you can't use any single one of them because none of them fits all. You need to keep using different things because you want different results. We haven't gotten to a level where we can have one system that works and gives us everything. Secondly, many of these have a cost. You need a computer, you need a telephone. You need a computer, you probably need a printer. You need to buy cameras, you need to buy radios, you need to buy, a lot of stuff that then you will need to integrate and work together to give you the results you want. And that is a challenge. And then, of course, the software, if you're going to get software that works, normally it needs to be licensed. And when it is licensed, it is an extra cost. And then there is this thing I am calling apathy. When I look at this room, it is full of younger people. And I guess many are students, and I guess many don't have jobs. If you don't mind, you're a student or you don't have a job, just raise your hand. If you don't mind. People, just look around you. Okay? Now, put down. Those fellows who didn't put their hands up have a job. When they get the job, they think it has ended. They don't want to learn new things. You are bothering them as the executive director to tell them this is the software we should use. Unfortunately, the moment I have given you a job, it is very hard for me to fire you. It's very hard. But that is the reality. And yet, half of this room is looking for a job. Now, you people who raised your hands, when you get a job, I want to request you kindly that do the best you can in that job. Don't say because I have gotten it, it is all finished. We have gotten to where people are being given contracts. You'll get fired. They will not renew your contract. But people lack interest. You bring a new system, you spend money to train, and then they use it for a day. If you don't ask for results, they will not use it. And you are too busy doing a lot of other things that and yet this is supposed to help us do a better job. So we have that as a problem, and Dr. Panta here will agree with me that as chair of the board, when he was chairing it, he was hitting me on the head every time we met as to why we are not utilizing technology and why we are not doing this or the other. And it's all related to technology. But that lack of interest is a big, big challenge to many of us who are working. I'm not saying everybody, but many. There is the bigger problem. The technology evolves. Our chief guest here was talking about the first, the second, the third industrial revolution. We are in the fourth. You who have phones, when these phones started, I think in the late 90s, mobile phones, I was like his friend who said, me? Mobile phones? Forget. These days I have one of the newest versions of Samsung. I have refused the Apple. I prefer Samsung. Still have a problem with apathy also. But let me tell you, this technology changes. 5 years ago, actually not 5 years, every year there is a new version of a phone. Samsung has a group of them that it releases every year. Apple has its own that it releases every year. What is the other one? Techno has that it releases every year. And because it is releasing something new, they have improved what they had, but there are new functionalities there. It means you need, one, to buy a new equipment. But two, you need to train staff. Those resources are not there all the time. And with the apathy we have a big problem on our hands. So this issue of buying upgrades, of buying new equipment, of training and retraining of staff is a huge, huge challenge to us. When we started SMART, that time it was called some other name. Charles, remind me. It was called the MIST, Monitoring Information System. Now, that thing changed and it became SMART. Good thing is it had the funders, they have been improving the technology, and so we don't need to buy the technology. But we have to buy the equipment, we have to retrain staff. Now, new things like Earth Ranger is a new thing, have come up. Cyber Tracker is a new thing. ODAK is also off the shelf, so you don't have to buy it. But if you want better applications, you get a license. And that costs money. And these keep evolving, and so you have to keep improving. And that is a challenge. And then there is the issue of inadequate human capacity. You see, if you tell a guy